Okay, hopefully everyone can see the slide deck. Welcome to the More Than Just VMs, the underlying fabrics that can enable your learners. Okay, so what are we going to be talking about? So I'm Paul Gregory, for those that don't know me. I'm a solutions engineer here at Skillable, and we're actually going to really go into a direction where most of our customers don't go. I would say most customers, historically have come to us because they want to run virtual machines and deliver labs using virtual machines. And that's something that we do really well, massive scalability. And, it's just something, I mean, when I was a customer, it was just a platform we could trust, and it worked really, really well. But we do so much more. And if you attended Frank's keynote, obviously he talks a little bit about containers, and we're doing some amazing stuff which is going to get pushed to production today around containers. So hopefully going to show you some different things that we can actually do with those. But again, there's also so much more as well. Often people don't realize some of the things that we can do on our platform. And I guess one of the things that's been, really great is we've actually started to look at how do we push ourselves outside our comfort zone. What can we actually do? Often we've enabled a lot of technologies in the platform to address specific needs, specific requirements, and then actually not realizing maybe how we can use that outside of the box, as they say. Okay. Plus, we've got some interesting things to show you. So there is going to be a little bit of a poll that I'm going to ask you to get involved in at the end. We want to gauge some reactions, if that's okay. So just like using the reactions in Teams or just via chat. So I just wanted to pre-warn you about that. Okay, so what are we going to look at? We're just going to quickly recap where most people see us with virtual machines. We're going to talk about some of the other things that, again, actually, things like AWS and Azure get used quite extensively on our platform, but actually maybe talk about, some other scenarios. We're going to talk about containers. We're going to touch on this concept of bring your own cloud that we're talking about now. And we've got this new lab type that we're investigating. So we've put it here as sort of physical simulation. In reality, that's maybe not what it is, but we're just trying to be a bit cagey. We want to just keep it a secret till we get to the appropriate slide. And then there will be a little bit of some questions and answers. Okay, so first and foremost, if you've not seen it, we do have a great blog written by James, who's actually on here, about choosing the right VM type for your scenario. So we're not going to talk about VMs because this is about more than VMs, okay? But, ultimately, if that's where your majority of your learning is, sometimes it's about picking the right VM type and so on. So we have a great blog. And actually, a lot of people don't necessarily realize that we can use Azure and AWS today as a virtualization fabric. Okay, so why might you want to use those? So just really quickly, to really address maybe some key scenarios which we don't do in our environment. So hardware GPU. So just imagine, for example, you've got scenarios where you might be doing crazy amounts of data science, number crunching, and all those sorts of things. Then you might need some additional horsepower. You're doing things like a graphical development, and actually you'd like someone to be able to use a proper graphics application. Trying to run that on our platforms maybe not the best experience because the application needs hardware GPU support. So the cloud can bring that to you, and we can then present those out to you and still give you that on-demand ability that you get from Skillable. The fact that you can turn around and go, well, I want to run this lab now for this many people, and away you go. So there is a place for that, okay? And those scenarios exist. And again, if you listen to Frank early on, if he was here, he touched on very quickly about our traditional place we're known in terms of our innovations, in terms of when we onboarded Azure, when we onboarded things like AWS, and the fact that we've actually had hybrid capabilities for quite a while. So as well as being able to teach the cloud and consume resources that are in the cloud, obviously we can build environments where you can teach, maybe migrating from on-premise to cloud scenarios, or combining on-premise and cloud-based resources, if that's what you wanted to do. So those are more than likely pretty well known, tried, tested scenarios. And of course, there was the big announcement from Frank. If you didn't see the keynote from Frank, one of the things he introduced to you two is our new roadmap that's on the Skillable site, public roadmap, everybody can go and see. And right near the beginning, in big bold letters, is the fact that GCP is coming. Okay, so we're actually going to be adding GCP support as a first-class native cloud capability on our platform, right there with Azure and AWS. So just a couple of sort of timer guidelines. I'm being a little bit vague with the times because, as I'm sure you're all aware, development times can sometimes slip and so on. But effectively, we are going to be looking for an internal release and have some challenge labs in the July and into August timeframe. And then we're looking for, customer access. So if a customer wants GCP access and they come to us and request it, we're looking towards the end of the summer for us in the northern hemisphere. Okay, that's where we're going to be. So again, we made a big splash about it on our public roadmap. It's there for everybody to see, and we will basically start to be onboarding that. So other than GCP, stuff that we've been doing for quite a while, pretty traditional. Now, if any of you attend things like my lab developer workshops, you will know that I did a lab developer workshop earlier this year on containers. I'm a big fan of containers, and I'm a big fan of them in learning environments. And really, one of the reasons I'm a big fan of them from a learning environment point of view is effectively they're fast. So you can actually start container-based environments up really, really quickly. And one of the things for me that becomes really interesting as an educator is the fact that you can really move towards things like micro learning or nano based learning, or whatever terms you might actually like to sort of use around there. One of the problems sometimes with virtual machine based learning is, well, I have to make the lab 45 minutes because it takes 4 minutes to start. Okay, so I'm not going to basically ask someone to go and start a lab, which is then going to get them to do 2 or 3 minutes worth of activity when they've had to wait 3 minutes for it to fire up. Okay, because that's not getting much bang for your buck effectively from the learning engagement point of view. So for me as an educator, okay, I love the fact that actually with containers they start in a few seconds, so I can give people a little bit of knowledge. Right, let's go try it. Little bit of knowledge, let's go try it. And you can really sort of start to sort of build that type of nano micro learning type model, and actually engage the learners between the different environments. Okay. So when we start to think about containers, there are lots of scenarios where containers can be used. And because of the features that are going into production tonight, and actually, shout out to Paul Portillo that's on here and his team and what have you, and James for all the work they've done in terms of actually enabling some new capability and some new scenarios for us with the container architecture. So, we've traditionally been able to do terminal-based experiences. So you could teach people how to use a Linux command line. You could teach people how to do Linux scripting. You could even teach people how to do a bit of PowerShell, for example, using the sort of Linux PowerShell modules that are available in containers and so on. So those sort of things have been about a little while, and we've had a couple of sort of prototype scenarios where you could do things like a little bit of dev work, maybe even using things like Visual Studio Code, because we had this sort of web UI capability. So rather than connect to a container via a terminal experience, we could connect to it via a web connection. Okay, and that was okay, but what I would say, you know, in preparation of for the features that are coming out today, okay, it was a classic version 1 technology. That's where I put it. You know, it did a great job, but it, you know, it did what it did. Okay, and actually, like any piece of technology, you know, it's only when you actually get it out there, you get it in the hands of people, and then people try to push it in different directions, at which point all of a sudden you've got this big feature list that you would like to actually be able to have a version 2. And that's when, you know, you go from, you know, it does what you want it to do, and it does a good job at that, and then it really starts to sing and really allow you to deliver much better environments. Okay, so I've got a few things just from a, you know, a demonstration point of view, which you know, I'd like to sort of illustrate. So I'm not going to do much in terms of some of these demonstrations, but I've just pressed the launch button on a container lab here, which is just basically for the command line environment. Let me make that a bit bigger, so you can see how quickly that's actually fired up. I appreciate the text is a little bit small, but actually, you know, we've launched that really fast, and that's that classic that we could always do. So nothing sort of too special with that sort of things that we've been able to do for a very long time. And I could go and fire up a PowerShell one and stuff as if I wanted to, but I'm not going to worry with that. Other scenarios that we could do before. So I'm just going to press the launch button on this one, and I'm just going to launch this up. So if anyone attended my lab developer workshop on containers, this was something that we actually did as part of the lab developer workshop. So this was actually demonstrating where you could use containers in a cybersecurity context. So using this maybe for you know, teaching, in this case, you know, secure coding and penetrating websites would be an example. So, you know, in here, for example, I can't remember what the credentials are now. Let me just go and pass the yes, I agree that what I'm about to do, I'm not going to go and try and do on anyone's public system. Okay, you know, if I come in here, okay, and this is running on, and funny enough, actually, because of some of the places we've just improved the technology, this works much better on our new release. So this is running on our live production system. So I wanted to sort of show you sort of what this was like, sort of warts and all. Okay, and I'll show you some of the new stuff. So when I go and sort of do things like change the security model here, you actually see we just get a 404 error and have to sort of reconnect to the web application. Okay, so but just to sort of show you the sorts of things you could do from a learning point of view here. You know, I'm sure some of you that have maybe got networking skills, you know, you might have used tools on the internet a bit like this. You know, I'm sure some of you have gone and used tools on the internet where you could test an IP address. So if I come in here, for example, and type in all the 8s, okay, and say, right, let's go out and actually check to see whether we get a response from that. So just like those classic websites where you can ping an address and those sorts of things. And you can sit here and say, oh, I've got a response back. Now, if I'm a bad person, so I'm a threat actor, I'm looking to compromise someone's system, I might sit there and go, just pretend this is on the internet. Oh, actually, that just looks like the response you get back when you run a ping command on a Linux machine. I'm wondering if they've secured that correctly. So what I could go and do, for example, is I could go and add other commands in here. So I could go and do things like, let's go and put the same IP address in, and then do things like ampersand ls-l. Okay, let's see what happens when I do that. Okay, of course, so let me talk this. I didn't think it had taken it there. Me being very impatient. Let's just try that again. Okay. So hopefully this time we did see the response came back, but actually you can see that it's actually gone and done a directory listing. So actually what I can see quite clearly there as a threat actor is actually the fact that it's passed that command. So here we've got a learning opportunity. So we're using containers. So imagine I'm writing that security course. I can actually be spinning up labs really fast for the particular scenarios that they're learning on, and just engaging them for those pieces of micro nano learning, rather than these traditional big, large, monolithic type training objects. Okay, so they would be the sorts of things that I might use this for example. Okay, and then we can go off and look at some of the sort of the newer things that we're actually doing. So I know obviously you did see that if you joined the launch keynote, you would have seen this from Frank. So he did mention about this Jupyter example that we've got, where actually he said it launched in about 10 seconds, I think he said, but he launched it in the background. I wanted you to see it launch. Okay, so you do see that it really does launch that quickly. Okay, so much quicker than a traditional virtual machine environment. And what I will turn around and say when this loads in a second, okay, is this is running on our UAT system. This is not running on our production system. So this is actually running on our non-production class resources, the stuff that we just do testing on and that before we push stuff to production, because of course this isn't in production today. It will be in a few hours, hopefully. So, I'm not going to sort of walk through this, but actually, if you're into things like data science, Jupyter Notebooks is one of the key technologies that a lot of companies are using to be able to deliver this type of training. And again, they're jumping in and out of micro learning modules. Okay, and virtual machines just don't lend themselves to those scenarios. And actually, one of the other problems you have with virtual machines is sometimes the environment can just be too complex. Okay, this just simplifies the environment down to the app that you want people to engage with. And ultimately, obviously you'd have your instructions and they're all there. So I can come and select the first block of code. I can get it to go and run it. Obviously, the idea would be you'd get the user to write the code. Okay. And then the idea being, if I come down to this piece of code and run it, obviously what it should do is generate a chart. Obviously the code's been written, you can see the chart's been generated. But just because we're using containers and we're not using virtual machines, it doesn't change anything in terms of our capability. So we still have, the ability to have our automated activities, the ability for you to actually check whether they've done the work correctly or not done the work correctly. So all that, secret sauce of ours that we've always had in our platform is all still there. Just because we're using containers, it doesn't matter. And actually, it's easier to set up in a container context. The amount of times I've had conversations with customers that have wanted to be able to build automated activities and PBT for Linux-based systems. And actually configuring the Linux system so the SSH environment worked correctly and so on was often sometimes a bit of a struggle. And this just removes a whole load of those challenges that actually exist. So hopefully you can see these sort of new scenarios, and I could pick I've got no data in this one, but one of the other things that we've certainly been working on is Grafana. So ultimately, again, exactly the same. So I've got a container. Grafana's quite a big application. This does take a little bit longer to load. So, we're down to the sort of 20-second time frame here. But this is going to just spin us straight into Grafana. And you'd then be able to sort of start. Oh, it was working. That's the joys of live demonstrations on UAT systems. I'll give that another go in a second. But ultimately, Grafana was working a treat earlier on. I'll have a look at that in a second. But also, hopefully, you were going to see the Grafana environment. I am actually using some labs from one of our other developers. So if they've been in there making some changes, then that will teach me for just stealing their labs and not actually asking them. So I'll have a look at that in a second. So I apologize for that one. Okay. The joys of with one of my demos today are going to go wrong. Hopefully that's the only one. I've just got an example here. So this is actually slightly different. Okay, but this is actually Visual Studio Code. Okay, so again, if you wanted to actually go and teach coding and you wanted to use Visual Studio Code rather than have to have a VM and put Visual Studio Code on it and then all the load times, again, you just get into this environment which is actually much quicker. And you can sort of create files and so on, and you then be able to then go and obviously define what code you're going to write in and so on and so forth. So you can spin these up. Now, obviously, again, Sometimes you might, depending on what you want to achieve and maybe what you want to interact with, a container might not be the right approach. But, you know, for a lot of those scenarios where we can present the application as a web-based application, it is just going to give you a much more dynamic, faster experience, but you don't lose any of the sort of scalable type functionality. So hopefully just a few examples there of you know, some of the things that, you know, that we're doing now, and some of the things that are going to be released today. And actually, as I think Frank mentioned on the keynote, you know, this concept of actually we're going to be able to start making containers of fabric with preloaded applications in them. So, you know, a Jupyter fabric effectively, so you can just upload your own content. So I think one of the things that Frank mentioned was the fact that, you know, the Jupyter demo that I showed you, it was using lifecycle actions. Now we're using lifecycle actions just to pull what's called the Jupyter workbook down into it. Okay, so again, just actually from a customer's point of view, we can give you a Jupyter container, and you just need to modify the lifecycle action to import your workbook on load. You know, so it can be, you know, a really powerful example. We also then move into this concept of bring your own cloud. Okay, so bring your own cloud is where we can actually start to really onboard anybody's web application. Okay, and this is something that, you know, maybe a year ago we hadn't really thought about. Okay, and we're really now trying to sort of say to people, actually, you can almost train, you know, on any web-based application by using our platform. Okay, so we have this concept of non-native cloud or bring your own cloud, and we're actually going to be doing a lot of work on this to actually make the setup and the integration a little bit easier. But even today, you know, by the use of something we call credential pools and lifecycle actions, we can actually build, you know, really sort of, you know, pretty comprehensive labs. You know, so just as an example here, I'm just going to actually, you know, bring up a lab environment that we use instructions didn't load quite right. That's me messing about with Windows sizes the other day. Actually, that's not the one I wanted, so I apologize for that. This was the, I've lost the lab profile that I wanted. My apologies. What I was going to show is actually a lab profile that we have, which actually has our TMS in it. So for those that are actually use our TMS, we actually have a really great example of using that in a bring your own cloud scenario. And what we do is we can supply credentials into the web application. We can then actually utilize that application with the API to actually go and score and mark the work people do, or we could just do knowledge checks. So hopefully this is the one. Okay, so this is actually, for those that use our TMS, you know, it's not a first class lab environment on our platform. Okay, so straight away I'm just parked at that login screen. By using credential pools, we can dynamically allocate credentials to the users. So I can come in here and I can sort of copy the credentials for the username, and I can add that in, and I can go in and basically put the password in here as well that's been allocated to me. Oops, I should, if I could copy it correctly. Okay, operator trouble. Okay, and you know, then there are instructions about going off, in this instance, for those that use our TMS, creating a course. Okay, so I'm not going to go through those steps, but you can see again, I've got automated activities here where I can press the check to go and see if the course that I created, and it comes back and tells me that it didn't find the course. Okay, so you can see we've got this ability to sort of really integrate with, you know, external applications via their APIs and so on, and actually bring deliverable learning experiences straight into our platform. So you get all the benefits of all the things that we can do with our IDLX now instructions, and giving you that capability. And there's a whole load of pieces of technology that make this work. Credential pools might be something that you've not heard of before. So this is the ability to allocate credentials to users to authenticate against the platforms that have been pre-created. Hopefully you're aware of lifecycle actions. So these may be set up stuff in the cloud platform before we start. They could be used to tear down, so they could tidy up the web application once the lab's over, for example. And then obviously I just showed effectively an API integration by using the check button to go out there and actually interact with the web application itself to check my learning. So I appreciate I've been talking about stuff really fast, and part of that's because, you know, at one level I'm really excited about this that I want to start to talk about. So before I talk about this, okay, you know, hopefully you've seen, you know, we've got this new container web UI experience, you know, which is going to allow us to enlighten a lot more capabilities. You know, the Jupyter, the Grafana are just two examples of those things that we're doing. And you know, and actually, you know, we believe that for some customers, they're going to be real changes to using the container environments and so on. And we've talked about, you know, the bring your own cloud concepts and all those things. Okay, but what we'd like to also announce is what, you know, we sort of are starting to look at and working with another company, which is a new 3D immersive experience. So think of it like a 3D viewer for building an immersive experience. Okay, so what I'd like to do at this precise point, okay, is I would actually like to introduce to you, okay, a company that we've done a bit of work with one of our customers called Metaverse. Okay, now before you all start rushing off thinking Facebook and Meta and all that, not related. Okay, so this is a company we've been doing some work with a customer, creating some amazing labs, and they've got some amazing technology, which hopefully we're looking to work for. So this is really the question that I'm going to give to you when we come back to me, okay, is actually the stuff that they're about to demonstrate and something that I'm going to demonstrate afterwards. Do you find this interesting? Is this something you think you would really want to be able to do? So what I'd like to do, I'm hoping just, okay, that's not been done yet. I would actually like to introduce Corey to you. I'm just actually going to make them presenters as well. I'm not exactly sure who's going to be sharing their slides, and Julian. Okay, so they're from Metaverse, and I'm not sure. Is it yourself, Corey, that's actually going to be taking over and doing a bit of presenting?
Yeah, thank you so much for the introduction, and it's such a pleasure to get the opportunity to be here and to present to you all. This is a very exciting time, and we're looking forward to this this opportunity here. So while I get my screen ready, 1 second.
Hi, Paul. I just wanted to say hi to Julie Smithson from Metaverse. I'm also going to be sharing a little bit in this presentation today as well.
Welcome. I really appreciate you being able to join us on our launch session. So certainly for me, obviously I've been working with Wally from your organisation for a while, and some of the stuff that you've got is really exciting in terms of some new experiences. So I'm hoping the people that attend this feel the same as well.
Yeah, and just to do a quick introduction, my name is Julie Smithson. I'm the co-founder of Metaverse. I'm also the chief operating officer as well. So I manage all the productions and have been working with the team, working with the Skillable client to integrate our 3D viewer into the Skillable solution. So, and my colleague, Corey Brooks, I'll pass over to you. We're going to share a little bit in this presentation, give you something exciting and interactive to look at.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Julian. As Julie mentioned, yeah, I work for Metaverse as well. I am the Senior Director of Business Development over here. And again, really looking forward to this opportunity and showing you all of the things that we have in store and, what we're working on and the things that we've done in the past. And so we'll start by, just really talking about Metaverse as an applied 3D viewer for a more immersive learning and training. When we start looking at various different things, it's important to understand that Metaverse has been around since 2016, and we've done a multitude of projects when it comes to the XR industry and world, from XR products and projects. We've had quite a few world firsts based on our technology and tech stack. And then also, you know, quite a few amount of LinkedIn views and podcast listens. So, you know, one of the things that we like to talk about is that doesn't all just happen. It happens because of the proprietary tech stack that our founders and co-founders have actually developed from the ground up. It really is a low code, no code optional engine that you're able to drag and drop various integrations or 3D elements in order to build out something that's immersive, that you can actually take and train individuals or educate individuals on, and have the ability to save time, save costs, and other aspects of that. But also, you know, understanding that really Metaverse and the Metaverse is the future of communication and collaboration, along with the commerce and culture. Really, this whole industry is growing rapidly, and it's really due to the immediate value that it's able to bring all of the organizations that are getting involved, from manufacturing to marketing, training, entertainment, and education, of course. And then, you know, one of the things that we're able to do with the tech stack is, you know, we built for mobile first. And in saying that, it's extremely important to know that, you know, not everybody has a headset or VR headset. And most people, you know, over 7 billion different devices across the globe or around the globe that people are leveraging and utilizing on a daily basis. And because we built with that in mind, we built web first. And so being web first, meaning it's easily accessible. Anybody can access it. The whole idea was to have 0 barriers to entry. And so it makes it much easier to build projects or training, education, things like that than ever before. So when we start looking at, you know, the proprietary creation platform, OneClick Publishing, you know, as I mentioned, over 7 billion potential devices. And the nice thing is it's infinite scale. You can continue to build this out, add additional pieces to it. As I mentioned, you know, code optional, it's absolutely secure. And when it comes to the no barriers to entry, there's no apps to download. So you'll notice, if you haven't noticed in the past, other organizations that develop environments and things like that, there's always something or a barrier that is essentially blocking another individual from getting access to it. So that's one of the things that's extremely important to remember, is that there's no barriers. It's, you know, a URL structure, it's web-based, and you're able to gain access right away. And we, you know, support multiple different assets, from JPEG, PNG, MP3s, to the national, or I guess global standard of 3D objects, from FBX, OBJ, GLTFs, and so on. And then I'm gonna pass it over to Julie here, and she's going to talk about training and how it is spatial.
Yeah, sure. So we live in a 3D world, so it's time for our learning tools to also be in 3D. Immersive technologies allow the users to interact with products and processes and offer a more engaging way to learn. And I think Paul's going to show us in a couple of minutes how it does integrate with Skillable. But basically, using the same fundamental principles as game design, we actually breathe life into training. And as a result, you're able to see faster speeds to competency, you know, quicker learning, increasing retention, making the job more fun, so employee satisfaction, and seeing productivity, you know, increase and costs decrease, saving on travel costs and time to travel costs. Those are some of the things that we're immediately seeing as we're deploying the first of the labs through Skillable already, just because people aren't traveling. But then beyond that, you know, training and not having to go places and being able to interact with the machine, there's so many benefits that can be realized over time. So some of the other deeper, you know, learnings is fostering applied logic skills and critical thinking skills that immersive training is able to enhance in employees. So maybe go to the next slide. I think, so just basically, how did we work with Skillable? And this is maybe a good place to, we've got a few demos, but I think we all want to see how a 3D viewer is working in Skillable. So we actually integrated our 3D viewer into the Skillable backend. And now that allows the virtual machines on the other side, the learning on the other side of the entire program to come together and have a more interactive experience for the user to learn something. So we used it for maintenance and repair instructions and functionality operations of very technical blood machines. And then we're also able to, connect the analytics behind that to Skillables to produce a dashboard reading of how to measure the success of learning and retention. So I know we have a couple of demos that we can show. And Corey, I don't know if you have them ready, but I do if you don't. There you go. So this is one a learning lab. So maybe click and interact with the scene just so everybody knows it moves. you have to show everybody it's 3D. So click it and interact. No, even before you click explore, you have to click the table, move it around. There you go. So you can see the whole scene is you can engage with it. And for this particular lab, there's the option to explore, to demo, and experiment with it. So exploring basically allows you to, circular the scene. And then if you touch the gloves, Corey, or the waste bin, or the waste bin, or any of the tubes, it'll give you an identity tag of what that thing is. So you can click something else, click through. And it's basically observing, taking a look at all of these things and learning about them. Now the demo button on the top next to it, if you click that one, that allows you to, you have to select something and it puts, you have to do things in sequential order. And this is where a process is put into place of how do you anchor your training into a three-pronged approach that builds the best user experience that translate the best educational experience. So, for this one, they have to go step by step. What do you do next when, after you put the glove on, you take the stick. If you didn't know this one, Corey, you actually take the swab stick. I think, sorry, on the left-hand side, the pipette and this, you can pick them up and you have to start taking samples and it'll block you from actually doing that. But as you can see, interacting with the process itself is a lot more interesting and engaging. And that's the service that Metaverse has offered and integrated into this learning management system. So, Paul, maybe this is a great time to show them how the ultrasound demo that we have could also be integrated there with your system.
Certainly shall. Yeah, so I'll just jump over and grab the sharing again. So one of the things you might be interested in is actually how this interacts with our environment and actually. So one of the things I would have loved to have been able to show you is one of the examples we've got in production today with a customer. But as you can imagine, obviously, a lot of the stuff that people are going to be doing in these environments is proprietary. So unfortunately, we can't do that. But what I have got is I've actually got the ultrasound demo, so which is sort of running in our environment. So if I sort of hit the get started, okay, so this is this is a demo that we use for a number of customers. So some of you might have even seen this. So this is actually using the ultrasound tool. So you can see it's got our instruction window. It's a lab environment that you know and love. And again, just like Julie was mentioning, it's fully interactive. And you can see, even more than likely through Teams, the scrolling's pretty smooth. And I think that's really one of the things that's really quite key from a lab delivery. I don't know if anyone's ever tried to do some of these things which are high graphics, and then you stop dragging and the picture keeps moving for the next 10 seconds and the user's over rotated it and things. And these were things that we were really sort of working on about how could we really improve this experience. And, and some of the things we're working on is actually, starting to integrate this with our ABA and our PBT engine as well. So, you'll be able to do all of those sort of types of activities that we have when it's coming along. But hopefully, you're not going to spend too long actually sort of messing about with this. But hopefully you can see that it's scrolling really smoothly, interacting. As I say, you can obviously have instructions. So we've got some stuff about how to interact with the simulator, and then we've just got some MCQs, which obviously you'll all be sort of fairly familiar with, and so on. So hopefully that sort of gives you a little feel for how that environment fits within our environment. And obviously, if anyone's really interested in this, we can obviously all get together and we can sort of talk about some of the architectures behind this and how the VM stuff works and so on. How's that look for you, Julie? Is that okay?
Yeah, it looks great. Looks great in your system there.
Cool, brilliant. I'll just end that just so get me slides back. So actually, really, just either just through like the emotion reactions in Teams, or if you almost put anything in chat, does that sort of thing interest anybody? They sort of see a possible use for any of those types of labs where they might have stuff they need to train in the physical world, but just impossible.
Sometimes it's hard to grasp the whole 3D immersive application because it's so new, right? We've never really applied 3D to learning before, and that right now is one of the biggest challenges that we have with our enterprise partners of taking that content, which is 2D instructions, and we're making them into 3D instructions. And there's a whole different language of translation that has to happen in that digital transformation process. So, the grasping the concept of being able to do that is one thing. Creating these experiences in our editor is also something that's very possible for your clients to be able to create their own designs, take your models and build scenes out of them and try that out for your own proof of concepts, and see how they can work as labs through Skillable, and integrating those questions and procedures on top of that integration is going to be key for making the best experience to learn from.
Yeah,
right.
And I must admit, I think your first point there is so right in the fact that we've got conditioned to this 2D flat learning experience. It's written on a piece of paper or
it's rectangle. Rectangles and squares, right? With corners.
I remember, I don't know if you have them in the US. We have these books that you can buy for doing car repairs called Haynes manuals. So ultimately, I just learned to repair cars from 2D pictures effectively, and and ultimately, this would just open up that whole different concept and world. I appreciate we don't have anybody that works for a car repair company on here, but ultimately, just that, and we have got, just as an example, we have got, a customer, and currently they're thinking about how they might use this type of technology. We're in early conversations with them at the moment, just because they do equipment repair, which is sort of PC-based technology. So actually, being able to, could we actually show the PCs, get them taking the case off, and all those sorts of elements and bits and pieces. So,
well, absolutely. Is that, I always talk about how the instruction manual is one of the biggest things that can be, transformed into an experience now. And, how many times do you open a package where I think I've done it. I've taken a picture of the instructions and then zoomed in because the print is so small. Like, why did they put us through this, right? But this is where augmentation of that demonstration. Why can't I pull my phone up, scan a QR code, that could, embrace that experience and show it to me right away. These are all the things that we're starting to engage with technology more. And it's the same thing with real-time communications, which is another feature that we have that, Paul, I'm excited about exploring a little bit more with Skillable, because we do have that ability to be in the same immersive experience at the same time. and be able to chat and talk and see each other at the same time while we are learning about something.
Yep.
And that just elevates learning to a whole new level.
Yeah, definitely, because we don't work in isolation, so that's absolutely fantastic. Yeah, brilliant.
Great.
Okay, so
thanks so much for having us.
No, really appreciate
yes,
your time, and because always everyone's time is valuable nowadays. So really appreciate you spending some time with us and actually showing and telling us about what you're doing. Because certainly for me, I think there's a lot of opportunity, and a lot of excitement around this, because it's something different. It's I remember actually. So I've been at Skillable, just over the year, and the last time we did launch last summer, that was one of the questions from a customer in terms of, can you do sort of more sort of VR, immersive, 3D type learning, and actually a year ago our chief exec was responding to that with a no. That's something that we're not capable, and actually 12 months later, not only are we capable, we've got customers running this in production, utilizing your technology. So again, just going back to a lot of things we've been talking about, I appreciate those you didn't attend some of the events, but a lot of the things is actually we're really revolutionizing our platform over the last few months, and it's still going on, and this is just another prime example of something you're helping us do. So thank you.
Yeah, it's just the beginning, so thank you very much. Yeah, thanks for having us, and if anybody wants to reach out or has any questions, feel free.
Yeah,
we're both here.
So if anyone's got any questions, that actually does sort of get us to the end of the session. So if you've got any questions you'd like to ask me, or you'd like to ask Julie or Corey, please do. As always, you'll be getting some information around feedback and things, but obviously that will bring us to the end of, or actually, wait, I don't know if any of you are attending Ask the Experts. Obviously, I forgot we've got Ask the Experts, which starts at, I think it's 1:15 the hour. It's a good job that I didn't forget we've got Ask the Experts, because I'm one of the experts. I've got to remember to join. So that was nearly close. It's 8 p.m. for me, so I'm ready for bed. Well, getting towards 8 p.m. Any questions, please unmute your mic, throw them into chat. Obviously, if you do think about this technology in the future and you'd like to maybe look at Metaverse, obviously you can approach Metaverse directly. But again, if you've got an account exec in Skillable, we can get you all hooked up together. So you absolutely can completely come to us as well and say, I would love to do one of those immersive learning experiences, and we can make sure we get all the right parties together and actually get you up and running and get that going for you. So I'm going to be quiet now, but thank you very much, everybody. Hopefully it's been a useful session. If there's any questions, please fire away. Okay, so I guess not. So thank you very much. Hope it's a useful little session for you, and hope to see you on a future event. Thank you very much.